Long ago, in a land far away, flowed a sparkling river named Ratna. Her waters ran deep and steady, but there was something peculiar about this river. Half the year round, the land on one side of the river would be dry and barren. No crops would grow on it. Meanwhile, the other side would be lush and blooming with exquisite flowers and fruits. It was almost as if the abundant side of the river would transform into a magnificent utopic garden. Mango, banyan, and mahogany trees would stand tall, and evergreen zinnias, hibiscus, and bakul flowers would be in full bloom. Life was blissful on this side, but on the other side, life was dark and bleak. There lived on the deserted side of the river a conniving jackal named Chaudhary. Chaudhary wanted desperately to cross the river and get to the luscious side. But he couldn't swim that far. He thought, I cannot dive into the river and swim towards the other side. I will drown in Ratna's deep waters. I must come up with a plan. Suddenly, he noticed his old friend, the camel, resting in the sun. He went up to his long-necked friend and said, My dear old camel, Jai Hind. The camel, alarmed and miffed at being disturbed in his slumber, grumbled, Jai Hind, Chaudhary, what's the matter? Chaudhary was cunning. He quickly struck up a conversation with the old camel and politely asked, My sweet camel, can we go to the greener side? We will have a lot of fun. We will eat, drink, play, and roam about the entire day. Life will be beautiful. The old camel, swayed by Chaudhary's flight of fancy, agreed, and they both set out towards the other side of the river. The river tides could rise very high, but the camel wasn't afraid. He was as steady as the river herself and carried the jackal on his back with utmost patience. After a few hours, they finally reached the other side. There, they ate all the delicious fruits and flowers and roamed around. The camel had an enormous belly, because of which he could eat lots of fruits and vegetables and all the flowers and leaves. He would also, in his frolic, destroy a few plants. Because of these habits, Chaudhary started to despise his old friend. He thought to himself, This damned old camel is like a monster, eating up all the produce. He must be stopped, or else I'll starve, even on the greener side. The jackal tried day and night to come up with a solution that would do the job, yet keep him safe. He wanted to kill two birds with one stone. And one day, when he saw the camel in a jolly mood, he finally came up with an evil scheme. He said, Camel, there's a hill nearby that's known for its delicious grapes. Come, let's go. I will feed you grapes. The camel, unaware of his fate, agreed. On the other side of the hill was a small village, and the people from the village took great care of their trees and put great effort into maintaining their gardens. Chaudhary lured the camel towards the village and then towards the grape gardens. The jackal was quick on his feet and in a flash ate all the grapes. And when his belly was full, he loudly burped and said, Camel, my stomach is full to the brim. Now I feel like howling. The camel, alarmed by Chaudhary's idea, said, Oh Chaudhary, have you gone crazy? Upon hearing your howls, the villagers will come running and then they will beat us up. But this was precisely what the conniving jackal wanted. With a wicked grin on his face, he said, Camel, Are my howls to be silenced? How can I deny my heart what it wants? And as soon as he said this, he began howling. Startled by the howls, the villagers came running towards the garden with sticks in their hands. The jackal ran and hid in the bushes. But the poor mellow camel couldn't run as fast. The villagers mercilessly beat the camel up. The old camel took the beating and painstakingly dragged himself to the other side of the hill. Over the next few days, the jackal had the time of his life, relishing all the fruits and flowers all by himself, while the feeble camel dragged himself from one place to another, only eating fallen leaves and dry grass. A few months passed. The seasons were changing, and slowly their side of the river was starting to dry up and become barren. But of course, the other side was now bountiful and abundant. And fortunately, the old camel had also recovered. Chaudhary was again growing desperate. He wanted to go to the other side of the river. One day, when he noticed that the camel was healthy and happy, he went up to him and politely said, "Dearest camel, let's go back to our land." The camel only smiled. The jackal again said, "Camel, our time in this place was very well spent. But what happened with you really saddened me." The camel continued smiling and said, "Oh, Chaudhary, don't think too much of it. This is what was written in the law of life." Just as before, the camel very lovingly mounted the jackal on his back and set off into the river. But this time, right in the middle of the river, the old camel halted and said, "Oh, good friend, please forgive me. But my health is very fragile and I need to rest." Chaudhary, now panicking, started begging, "Camel, just take a few more steps and leave me by the riverside, and then you can rest as much as you want." The camel laughed and said, "Oh, great Chaudhary, is my desire for rest to be ignored? How can I deny my heart what it desires?" The jackal understood exactly what was being said. He folded his hands in front of the camel, crying, "My dearest camel, please forgive me. I feel terrible that I didn't listen to you then. But I did not want to cause you any harm." The camel laughed out loud and said, "Chaudhary, I too don't want to cause you any harm. I simply want to rest." Chaudhary cried and begged for mercy, but the camel did not pay any heed. In the middle of the river, he sat down and began to rest. The hapless jackal flowed away with the current of the Ratna, and only the Lord knows which pier he landed on. It is indeed true what they say: as you sow, so shall you reap.